To reassess the role of the United States Congress in the current geopolitical and domestic landscape is not merely an academic exercise in political theory, but a vital inquiry into the survival of the Republic's balance of power. And we must begin by looking back at history to perceive the painful contrast between the original design of the Founding Fathers and the naked reality currently unfolding on Capitol Hill. When James Madison and his colleagues drafted the Constitution, they were driven by a visceral fear of monarchical tyranny, leading them to vest Congress with immense powers, specifically the power to declare war and the power of the purse to ensure that no single individual in the White House could act as an unconstrained sovereign. However, observing the events of the second year of President Trump's administration, I am compelled to offer a blunt assessment that we are witnessing an alarming retreat of the legislative branch, a voluntary abdication of power without precedent in modern history, as Republican leaders in both chambers appear to have stepped back to yield the stage entirely to a president who is operating the executive machinery with rare speed and ferocity. The silence echoing through the corridors of Congress is not one of constructive consensus, but resembles the paralysis preceding a great storm, raising the pivotal question of whether Congress retains the political will to reclaim its standing, or if it will accept its reduction to a subsidiary branch, a mere rubber stamp for decisions emanating from the West Wing. The harsh reality we face is not found in the platitudes of cable news, but in specific actions that have shattered established norms, as President Trump, with an uncompromising leadership style, has continuously tested the boundaries of law and political custom without encountering significant resistance from the majority in Congress. I have observed the president unilaterally alter the statutory name of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, a symbolic act that carries a powerful message regarding the disregard for legislative legacies, while simultaneously withholding funds already appropriated by Congress for national priorities, an action that in previous eras would have immediately triggered fiery hearings and legislative retribution. Even more dangerous is his assertion of broad authority to impose tariffs, a domain the Constitution explicitly assigns to Congress, and his launch of military attacks off the coast of South America without authorization from the legislative branch, all transpiring while lawmakers remain fixated on short-term political calculations for the upcoming midterm elections. This passivity does not merely weaken the current standing of Congress, but it establishes a deeply dangerous precedent for future generations of presidents who will look back on this period as proof that the executive can override the legislative if the former is sufficiently brazen and the latter sufficiently divided. Delving into the internal dynamics of the Republican Party, I discern a profound internal struggle between constitutional duty and political loyalty, where many members of Congress have chosen the safe path of silence or unconditional support rather than exercising the necessary functions of checks and balances. Rare voices such as Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska have pointed out that the president would actually operate more effectively if the Republican-controlled House knew how to push back and adjust policies, particularly on sensitive matters like tariffs or foreign policy regarding Ukraine, because constructive dissent acts as a necessary filter to eliminate potential errors in unilateral decisions. However, the brutal truth is that when lawmakers behave like lackeys who only know how to nod in agreement with every command, the president no longer feels any constraint, leading him to act on instinct without weighing long-term consequences or the legality of those decisions. The absence of oversight from congressional committees is a systemic failure, transforming the legislative body from a co-equal partner into a passive spectator in the very power game they were designed to referee. A situation worsened when sporadic efforts at objection are quickly drowned out by the wave of absolute loyalty from the party majority. One of the most concerning aspects of this erosion of power lies in the realm of the budget. historically considered the final and most critical fortress of congressional authority, known as the power of the purse. Yet it is currently being systematically manipulated by the White House Office of Management and Budget to position itself as the final arbiter of all federal spending. We are witnessing the president and his allies brazenly cutting or withholding funds for federal agencies, even after spending plans have been approved by lawmakers, and even proceeding to dismantle the East Wing of the White House to construct a new ballroom without any consultation or financial approval from Congress. This incident is not merely a matter of bricks and mortar or architecture, but a symbol of blatant contempt for the legislative process, where the executive branch arrogates the right to decide everything from the smallest details to the largest projects without regard for the representatives of the people. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado was correct in his assessment that with the aid of the Republican majority in the Senate, President Trump is essentially walking all over Congress. And if this trend continues, we will see the role of Congress in shaping the national budget completely obliterated, rendering them an agency solely for rubber stamping decisions already predetermined by unelected officials in the White House. From the perspective of military and national security, as someone who has sat at the helm of the Pentagon, I feel a deep unease regarding the president's repeated orders to execute military strikes off the coast of Venezuela without congressional approval, a serious violation of the War Powers Act and the principle of civilian control over the military. The use of armed force is the gravest decision a nation can make, and the Constitution mandates that such a decision must involve the representatives of the people to ensure legitimacy and public support. Yet here we see a terrifying silence from the Senate, as the vast majority of Republicans refuse to join bipartisan efforts to limit the president's powers. This permissiveness by Congress not only places the military in a position of legal and strategic risk, but also creates an environment where the president can unilaterally drag the country into unnecessary or ill-prepared conflicts based solely on personal political calculations or intelligence that has not been fully vetted. An activist president will always possess the advantage of speed over a collective body of 435 members, but that is precisely why our system was designed to be slow, to